And now it's also my pleasure to introduce the leader of the All Stars Project of Chicago. He's been organizing in Chicago and in cities across America for 27 years to help diverse communities develop. Here is city leader of the All Stars Project of Chicago, David Cherry, joined by Chicago business leaders, All-Star Youth, alumni, and staff.
I am proud to stand here today as an All-Stars leader who has developed many partnerships and friendships with our supporters in the business community, many of whom are here this afternoon. These relationships have enabled me to speak openly and honestly about issues which make most people uncomfortable. Conversations about race and poverty can be very divisive and polarizing and very uncomfortable to speak about in mixed company. People of different races see the world based upon their own life experiences. As uncomfortable as these conversations can be, we must begin to have open and honest conversations with each other if we are to move forward as one city, one state, and one nation. The New York Times has published several articles this year focusing on the violence in Chicago. One of those articles was entitled, "Jobs for the Young in Poor Neighborhoods." It described young people who commit acts of violence as having no stake in society. As an African American man who spends a great deal of time working with young people most impacted by the violence in Chicago's poorest communities, I strongly object to this. This issue is not whether young people from the inner city have a stake in society, but whether our society has a stake in them. This is an issue which is very personal for me. I am the product of a union between a poor African-American man from South Carolina and a poor African-American woman from Alabama. They met in New York City, where I was born in 1960. I will always appreciate the tremendous love I received from them. Their love helped me to survive, but could not protect me from the overwhelming, humiliating, and painful effects of living in poverty. Overwhelming to always face financial hardships no matter how hard I work. Humiliating to be considered dumb no matter how hard I studied to get good grades in a ghetto school. Painful to be seen as a violent thug even though I've lived my life as a law-abiding citizen. There's nothing unique about these experiences. It is in fact the story of millions of poor African-American men, young and old, across this country. These experiences have left many of us angry, frustrated, and isolated from a society which has made us feel unwelcome, unwanted, and unable to connect to the mainstream. My view of the world and my role in it began to change when I met Dr. Lenora Fulani, co-founder of the All Stars Project, on the streets of Harlem in 1989. She and other strong African American women leaders have spent over 30 years inviting poor African American men like me to become part of the All Stars community. They are some of my best teachers, and not just with learning to run the programs, but more importantly, with how to speak publicly about being a poor African American man in our society. We have to be honest about the devastating impact our anger, frustration, and isolation is having upon us and our communities. We see it every day with the violence on the streets of the south and west sides of our city, and the fact that young black men are more likely to be unemployed, incarcerated, or killed at much higher rates than any other group in the country. As Dr. Fulani and other All-Stars leaders said to me 27 years ago, I say to today's young black men, we believe in you. We have a stake in you. We need you to grow and to develop, and not just for yourselves, but for our communities, and yes, for our society. We will not move forward without you, and we refuse to leave you behind. Thank you very much.
Very powerful. Thank you, David. Very, very powerful words. And it's with that, I think we have a lot to think about. We're going to actually break for lunch officially right now. So we're going to take a short time, and we'll see you in a few minutes.